Why would a 13-year-old boy bring an image of the Virgin Mary to school every single day, place it on his desk, and never explain to anyone why? And why, when the teacher finally discovered what he had been doing all that time, couldn't she hold back her tears? A miracle of the Virgin Mary that began in silence and changed the life of a woman who believed she had no hope left. But before we continue, leave a comment saying where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. I'd love to see how far the miracles of the Virgin Mary are reaching. Skylar was 38 years old and had been teaching at a school in Indiana for almost 15 years. You know that kind of teacher? The one who walks into the room and everyone stops talking. Not because she yells, not because she's mean, but because there's something about her that commands respect. Something that makes you sit up straight in your chair without even thinking. That was Skylar. She had started teaching at 23, full of dreams, full of plans. She wanted to make a difference in her students' lives. She wanted to be the kind of teacher people remember fondly when they grow up, and for a while, she was. In the early years, Skylar was different. She smiled more. She talked with students after class. She organized extra activities. She called parents when she sensed something wasn't right. But as the years went by, things began to change. There wasn't one specific event. There wasn't a single moment that altered everything. It happened gradually, like water wearing down a stone, slowly, without anyone noticing. And her personal life didn't help either. An engagement that ended badly. An empty apartment waiting for her every night. Friendships that faded because she was always too busy. Little by little, the hopeful Skylar gave way to another version of herself. A Skylar who did her job well, but no longer put her heart into it. She knew the subject better than anyone. She prepared her lessons carefully. She graded tests the same day. Parents liked her. The principal trusted her. Other teachers respected her. But no one truly knew Skylar. Have you ever met someone like that? Someone who is there, present, doing everything right, yet somehow feels like they're somewhere else at the same time? But Skylar was also carrying a weight no one knew about. The school year had started just a few weeks earlier when Colin appeared in her class. Colin was 13 years old. He had just moved to the town with his mother. His father had stayed behind in another state. People didn't know the details, and Colin never talked about it. The move hadn't been easy. Colin had to leave behind the school he'd attended since early on, the friends he had made over the years. His mother worked a lot, 2 jobs just to pay the bills. She left early and came home late. Colin spent a lot of time alone, but he didn't complain. He never complained. He was the kind of student who goes unnoticed at school. He wasn't the most talkative in the room. He wasn't the most disruptive. He wasn't the most popular. He was just another guy sitting in the 3rd row, near the window. But there was something different about him. On the 3rd day of class, Skylar noticed something. Colin had a small statue on his desk. An image of the Virgin Mary. It was small. It fit in the palm of a hand. A bit worn around the edges, as if it had been carried for many years. Skylar didn't pay attention to the image at first, but then she noticed something else. Before each class began, Colin would look at the small statue. He would close his eyes for a few seconds. Then he would open his eyes and put the image back into his backpack. Every day was the same. The other students didn't even notice. They were busy talking, checking their phones, doing anything else. But Skylar noticed, and for some reason, that started to bother her. Have you ever felt that? When something small, something that shouldn't matter, starts taking up space in your mind? Skylar didn't understand why that simple gesture bothered her so much. It was just a guy praying. He wasn't bothering anyone. He wasn't making noise. He wasn't disrespecting anything. But every time she saw Colin close his eyes in front of that image, something inside her stirred. Irritation, maybe. Curiosity, that too. Or maybe it was something else, something she didn't want to admit. A week went by. Skylar tried to ignore it. She tried to focus on the lesson. She tried not to look at that corner of the room, but she couldn't. One day, after the other students had already left, she called Colin over. "Colin, can I talk to you for a minute?" Skylar said. "Of course, teacher," Colin replied, stopping in front of her desk. Skylar looked at him. He seemed like an ordinary guy. Brown hair, calm eyes, backpack on his shoulders. "That image you bring every day," Skylar said, trying to sound casual. "It belonged to my grandmother," Colin replied. "She left it to me before she went away." Skylar understood what that meant. His grandmother had passed away. "I'm sorry," Skylar said. "It's okay," Colin said. "She's in a better place now." Uli, he said it with such simplicity. No forced sadness, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Skylar stayed silent for a moment, and Colin left the room. Skylar stared at the door for a while. That simple answer had only made her even more uneasy. What no one at the school knew was what Skylar was dealing with outside of that place. 1 week before the school year began, Skylar had gone to the doctor for a routine exam. Nothing serious, just a checkup she did every year. But this time, the doctor asked for more tests. "It's probably nothing," he said, "but I want to be sure." Those words kept echoing in her mind. Probably nothing. But why ask for more tests if it was nothing? Skylar did the tests, and now she was waiting for the results. The waiting was the worst part. Every night, before going to sleep, her mind would spiral. What if it was something serious? What if her life changed completely? What if she had to stop teaching? What if... The thoughts wouldn't stop. She didn't tell anyone, not her family, not her co-workers, not even her closest friend from college. Skylar had always been like that. She handled things on her own. She didn't like worrying others. She didn't like appearing weak. But the truth was that she was afraid, deeply afraid. A fear so heavy it made her wake up in the middle of the night with her heart racing. And that was why Colin's gesture bothered her so much. Because every time she saw that student praying with such faith, with such certainty, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Envy. How could he believe like that? How could he have that kind of peace? Skylar had grown up in a religious family. She went to church when she was young. She prayed before going to sleep. She believed there was something greater. But at some point in life, that faded away. Work, responsibilities, disappointments, losses. Little by little, her faith dimmed, not all at once, slowly, like a candle melting until nothing is left. And now, when she needed something to hold on to the most, there was nothing. Days went by. Colin kept his ritual. Skylar kept watching, and she kept feeling unsettled. Then something strange started to happen. On a Tuesday, Skylar was having an especially difficult day. She hadn't slept well. She was anxious. Class was about to begin. Students were coming in. Colin sat in his seat, placed the image on the desk, closed his eyes. And in that moment, Skylar felt something. It was subtle, almost imperceptible. As if the air around her had grown lighter for a second. As if a wave of calm had passed through her. She looked around. No one had noticed anything. The students kept talking, laughing, putting their things away. Skylar shook her head. She was tired. She was imagining things. But on Thursday, it happened again. This time, it was different. This time she noticed a smell, a soft floral scent. Roses, maybe. She looked toward the window. It was closed. There was nothing that could explain where that smell came from. The class continued as usual. But Skylar couldn't get it out of her head. The scent of roses. Where had it come from? The following week, Skylar received a call. It was Wednesday. She was in the teacher's lounge, grading papers. Her phone rang, the clinic's number. Her heart started racing instantly. It was the receptionist. The results had come in. "Could you come in tomorrow at 10?" the receptionist said. "Can't you tell me over the phone?" Skylar asked, her chest tightening. "The doctor prefers to speak in person." That sentence. When the doctor prefers to speak in person, it's never good news. "Everything okay?" a colleague nearby asked. "Yes, yes," Schuyler said, putting her phone away. "It was just something personal." She looked back down at the papers on the table. The letters seemed blurred. The world felt like it was spinning. Schuyler didn't sleep at all that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thoughts racing nonstop, every possible scenario running through her mind. All the fears she had tried to ignore coming back at once. At 3 a.m, she got up, went to the kitchen, made a tea she didn't drink, sat at the table in the dark, waiting for morning to come. The next day, she went to the clinic. Her hands were shaking as she opened the door. The doctor greeted her with a serious expression. "Schuyler, the tests showed something we need to monitor," he said. She felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. The doctor explained. "I don't want you to panic," he said. "We caught it early. The odds are good. But I need to be honest with you about the situation." Schuyler listened in silence, asked the questions she needed to ask, scheduled the next tests, walked out of the clinic. In the parking lot, she walked to her car, opened the door, sat down, and then the walls came down. The tears came all at once. All the fear, all the anxiety, all the loneliness she had been holding in for weeks spilled out. She was alone. Completely alone. Her mother had passed away 5 years earlier. Her father lived far away, and they barely spoke. Her siblings had their own lives, their own families. Her college friends had drifted away over time. Who did she have? No one. Schuyler cried in the car for almost an hour. She cried until there were no tears left. She took a deep breath, grabbed a tissue, wiped her face, fixed her makeup, and went back to the school. She still had a class to teach. That afternoon, Schuyler taught on autopilot. The words came out of her mouth, but her mind was far away. The students probably noticed something was off. She was quieter than usual, more distant. When the bell rang and everyone left for the break, Schuyler stayed in the room. She sat down in the chair and let the silence take over. Schuyler thought about the next few months, the treatments, the uncertainty. And for the first time in a very long while, she did something she hadn't done in years. They weren't memorized words, it was just a silent request, a wordless cry sent somewhere she wasn't even sure existed. If someone is listening, she thought, I need help. She stayed like that for a few minutes, eyes closed, in silence. The break ended. The students came back into the room. Colin walked in, sat at his desk, and placed the image of the Virgin Mary on the table. And this time, Schuyler looked at him differently. She watched as he closed his eyes, watched as he put the image back into his backpack, and she felt something in her chest. The class ended. The day was over. The students left, all except Colin. He walked up to her desk. "Teacher, can I ask you something?" Colin said. Schuyler looked at him, surprised. "Of course, Colin, what is it?" He stayed quiet for a moment, as if choosing his words. "Are you okay?" he asked. Schuyler felt her chest tighten. "Why are you asking that?" she said, trying to keep her composure. "I don't know," Colin said. "I just felt like I should ask." Schuyler swallowed hard. What was she supposed to say? That she was scared? That she had just received news that could change everything? That she felt more alone than ever? "I'm fine, Colin," she lied. "Just a little tired." Colin nodded, but he didn't seem convinced. "My mom always says something," he said. "She says that when we pray, good things happen, even when we don't notice." Schuyler stayed silent. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "I don't know," Colin said again. "I just thought you needed to hear it." He gave a small smile, slung his backpack over his shoulder, and left. Schuyler stood there, staring at the door for a long time. That night, Schuyler couldn't sleep. Colin's words kept echoing in her mind. She thought about his ritual. Every day before class, he closed his eyes and prayed. Who was he praying for? What was he asking for? And then a thought crossed her mind. What if he was praying for her? No, that was absurd. Why would a 13-year-old pray for a teacher he barely knew? But the idea wouldn't leave her head. The next day, Schuyler arrived at school earlier than usual. She stayed in the classroom, waiting for the students to arrive. Colin was one of the first. He sat in his seat, placed the image on the desk, and closed his eyes. Schuyler watched closely. She wanted to ask. She wanted to know who he prayed for, what he asked for, why he did that every single day. But something held her back. Fear, maybe. Fear of sounding foolish. Fear of opening up. Fear of admitting that she needed help. The class went on as usual, and at the end, when the students were leaving, Schuyler made a decision. "Colin," she called, "could you stay for a minute?" He stopped and walked back to her desk. "Yes, teacher." Schuyler took a deep breath. "Do you believe in that?" she asked. "I do," Colin said without hesitation. "How do you manage it? How do you believe in something you can't see, can't prove, can't be sure of?" Colin thought for a moment. "I don't really know how to explain it," he said. "It's kind of like, you know when you feel the wind? You can't see the wind, but you know it's there. Faith is kind of like that." Schuyler stayed silent. "Can I ask you something?" she finally said. "You can. When you close your eyes before class, who do you pray for?" Colin smiled. "For everyone," he said. "For my mom, for my friends, for anyone who needs it, including you." Schuyler felt something break inside her, not in a bad way, in a freeing way, all that time, all those weeks. That boy had been praying for her without knowing what she was going through, without expecting anything in return, simply because that was what he did. The tears came before she could stop them. "Teacher," Colin said, worried, "I'm sorry, did I do something wrong?" "No," Schuyler said, wiping her eyes. "You didn't do anything wrong. You did everything right." She looked at him. That quiet boy, the one most people barely noticed. "Thank you, Colin," she said. "You have no idea how much I needed to hear that." Colin smiled again. That conversation changed something in Schuyler. It wasn't a dramatic change. It wasn't like in the movies where everything is fixed in a single moment. It was gradual, slow, one step at a time. But something had changed. It was as if a door that had been locked for a long time had opened just a little, just a crack, but enough to let some light in. That night, for the first time in weeks, Schuyler slept well. No nightmares. She didn't wake up at 3 a.m. with her heart racing. She simply slept. And she woke up feeling different. The next day, she woke up and prayed. Just a conversation, a request for strength. A thank you for not being alone. She felt silly doing it. The old Schuyler would have laughed at herself. Praying? For what? To whom? But the Schuyler of now was learning that there are things we don't understand, and that maybe we don't need to understand them. Maybe we just need to feel them. And in the days that followed, she started noticing things she hadn't noticed before. When Colin closed his eyes before class, she no longer felt uncomfortable. She felt grateful. Grateful to have someone who cared. When the fear about the medical tests returned, she took a deep breath and remembered his words. When we pray, good things happen, even when we don't realize it. She didn't know if she truly believed. She didn't know if her faith was strong enough. But she had decided to try, and sometimes trying is already enough. 4 weeks later, Schuyler had the new tests done. The waiting was hard, but this time she wasn't alone. Because she knew someone was praying for her. When the results came in, she went to the office with her heart pounding. The doctor greeted her with a different expression this time. It wasn't the serious look from before, it was something else. "Schuyler, I have good news," he said. Her legs felt weak. She had to hold on to the chair. "The new tests show a significant improvement," the doctor continued. "What we saw before is much smaller now. We'll keep monitoring it, of course. But things are going much better than we expected." Schuyler couldn't speak. The tears came again. But this time they were different tears. Tears of relief, tears of gratitude. "How is this possible?" she asked, her voice shaking. "In such a short time?" "To be honest, I can't explain it," the doctor said. "Sometimes the body responds in ways medicine can't predict. What matters is that you're getting better." Schuyler left the office in a state of shock. Improving. She was improving. In the elevator, this time, she couldn't wait until she reached the car. The tears came right there. Inside the car, she stayed still for a while, staring at nothing, processing the news. And then she thought about Colin. She thought about the image of the Virgin Mary. She thought about the silent prayers before each class. She thought about that simple young man who prayed for everyone without expecting anything in return. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe it was something more. Schuyler would never know for sure, and maybe she didn't need to know. The next day, Schuyler arrived at school different. Her colleagues noticed. There was something in her eyes, something that hadn't been there before. A light, perhaps. A sense of peace. "You look different today," a colleague said in the teacher's lounge. "I'm feeling better," Schuyler said. And this time, it wasn't a lie. At the end of the class, Schuyler called Colin again. "I want to thank you," she said. "For what?" Colin asked. "For praying for me, for believing when I couldn't." Colin stayed silent for a moment. "My grandmother used to say that prayers always reach where they need to reach," he said. "Your grandmother was right," Schuyler said. She opened the desk drawer and took something out, a small image of the Virgin Mary. It wasn't the same as Colin's. It was smaller, simpler, but it was hers. "I bought it yesterday," Schuyler said. "I think I'm going to start bringing it to school, too." Colin's eyes lit up. "I'm a little rusty. It's been a long time, but I'll try to pray," Schuyler said. Colin smiled, the biggest smile she had ever seen from him. "The Virgin Mary doesn't mind if you're rusty," he said. "She just wants to listen." The months went by. Schuyler continued with her follow-up exams, and each time the news was better. The doctor was impressed. At school, things changed too. Schuyler was still the same competent teacher she had always been. She still prepared her lessons carefully. She still graded the tests the same day. She still expected the best from her students. But there was something different. She smiled more. She talked more in the teacher's lounge. She asked about her colleagues' families, about weekends, about personal things she used to avoid. On the last class of the year, Schuyler looked at the group and felt a tightness in her chest. It had been a difficult year, the hardest of her life. But it had also been the year she learned something she would never forget. She looked at Colin seated in the third row near the window. "Before you go," Schuyler said to the class, "I want to thank you for everything, for teaching me so much this year." The students looked at each other, confused. Teachers don't usually thank students. "You taught us," one of them said. "We thought it was the other way around." Schuyler smiled. "We always learn from the ones we least expect," she said. The bell rang. The students began to stand up, grab their backpacks, say their goodbyes. Colin was one of the last to leave. He stopped at the doorway and looked at Schuyler. "Happy holidays, teacher," he said. "Happy holidays, Colin," Schuyler said. "And thank you for everything." He smiled. That simple smile she had learned to recognize. "You don't need to thank me," he said. "The Virgin Mary did everything." And then he left. Schuyler remained alone in the empty classroom. When was the last time someone prayed for you without you knowing? When was the last time you prayed for someone without expecting anything in return? The story of Schuyler and Colin was not about a miraculous healing. It was about something much simpler. It was about a 13-year-old boy who prayed every day because that was what he had learned to do. It was about a 38-year-old teacher who thought she was alone, but discovered she never was. It was about prayers that reach where they need to go, even when we don't know where we're sending them. And it was about the Virgin Mary, who takes care of everyone, even those who don't ask, even those who don't believe, even those who have already given up believing. You can call it coincidence. You can call it faith. You can call it whatever you want. But Skylar knows what it was. And every time she looks at that small image on her desk, she remembers. Before ending, I want to invite you to be part of our prayer community for the Virgin Mary. A space of faith and hope where people from all over the world come together to pray and share graces received. If you feel in your heart the desire to be part of this chain of prayer, click below and become a channel member today and come pray with us. And look, if you made it all the way here, to the end of Skylar and Colin's story, do one thing for me. Write prayer in the comments what Colin did for her every day without her knowing. I want to see how many hearts this story truly reached. And every time I read prayer in the comments, I'll know that one more person believes that miracles from the Virgin Mary still happen. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Write in the comments about a miracle you have witnessed or experienced, and share this video with someone who needs renewed hope today. May the Virgin Mary continue blessing and protecting you and your family. Amen.